Hey everyone, welcome again to our show, Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. Just ahead on this week's episode, we meet one of the youngest entrants in the DoD's race to ramp up production and drive down the costs of arming U.S. troops with the weapons and tech they'll need to fight and win America's next conflict. And if you like high-tech gear, our weapon of the week is a can't miss. We visit with the folks from Elbit America to get the deets on the X-Sight helmet, wearable tech that could be a game changer for helicopter pilots. But first, you know the drill, some headlines you may have missed. For the first time since Donald Trump's second term in the White House began, the U.S. military carried out airstrikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels, after the rebels said they targeted the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. According to a U.S. official, the Houthis did fire drones and at least one missile in response to U.S. attacks on Yemen. 10 of the drones were intercepted by U.S. Air Force fighter jets, and one was intercepted by a Navy FA-18 fighter. The missile fell into the water far from the ship, and nothing came close to hitting either the carrier or the warships in its strike group, the official said. But the American munitions, they hit their targets. Some big news coming out of the Army. The nation's largest service branch is preparing to ship its long-range hypersonic weapon, also known as Dark Eagle, to its first operational unit. It's the biggest step forward for a program that faced numerous delays during testing. With a range of a little more than 1,700 miles, Dark Eagle is a ground-launched missile with a hypersonic glide body, capable of hitting speeds of more than 3,800 miles per hour on the edge of the Earth's atmosphere. This speed would allow it to evade current air and missile defense systems while delivering its payload with hardly any warning. If all goes according to plan, Dark Eagle would be on its way to its first unit by the end of fiscal year 2025. Dark Eagle was also developed with the Navy, which means ship-launched hypersonic weapons are coming to a U.S. fleet near you soon as well. And we're seeing more movement on President Trump's plans for an increased military presence on the southern border. According to a release from the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base Public Affairs Office, approximately 550 Army soldiers will be arriving at the base near Tucson, Arizona in the coming weeks. This, as U.S. Northern Command is also working with the Department of Homeland Security to augment U.S. Customs and Border Protection along the border with additional military forces. 300 miles to the east, Army units from across the United States are starting to arrive at Fort Bliss in Texas, where, according to multiple Army releases, they will integrate with forces already deployed to protect and defend the territorial integrity of the United States. And on the West Coast, Marines in Southern California have been placing new layers of concertina wire along the wall at the border near Otay Mesa, and the USS Gravely guided missile destroyer is now in the waters near the border too. These latest moves are all part of the president's promise to clamp down on illegal entries, with the military backing up border control. For decades, the nature and shape of how America's military did business with civilian contractors looked very much the same. Billion-dollar behemoths and years-long procurement efforts. But what was once the standard is now changing, as the U.S. military continues to shift its focus from the global war on terror to more traditional adversaries like Russia and China. So too is the way they're going about arming their forces, looking towards newer, smaller, fleet-of-foot outfits that offer new ideas, with faster turnarounds that won't break the bank. Outfits like Mach Industries and their 21-year-old CEO and founder, Ethan Thornton. It almost sounds like something from a Hollywood studio. An MIT freshman leaves school to pursue his ambitions in the defense sector, convincing investors and other bright minds to join his mission. Fast forward a couple of years, a few bumps in the road, and several lessons learned, And Ethan Thornton says he has Mach Industries pointed in the right direction.
So think high altitude balloons, think long loader high altitude aircraft. Again, very bullish there. And that is probably work we're closer to doing as a company. I can't talk too much about that work.
Hopefully what you can talk about is your ideas on how we can get the American manufacturing process, not necessarily to catch up with our adversaries, but to, provide the American military force with a significant counterpunch to our adversaries. But it all starts with our manufacturing base. How do we fix it? We build big things very slowly. How do we build small things very quickly?
So manufacturing for like arming Ukraine or for arming Taiwan looks very different than manufacturing designed specifically for near-peer conflict. And so I think for the first one, you need very, very large automated factories producing thousands to tens of thousands of platforms a month, right? And that's pretty linear thinking. That is going to be extremely challenging from an electronics perspective. And I think if I were targeting specific areas that we need to be investing in very heavily as a country, it is making sure that we have the flight controllers, the radios, the gimbals, all of the sensors we need to scale to those numbers, because we are going to need to scale to those numbers at some point in the next few decades.
What's it going to take to get America into that mode of these are the things we need to start manufacturing in order to continue American ways, continue an American life? When there's so many distractions in the world, how do you get the American population focused to the point where our manufacturing reflects all these things that you're talking about?
I think the biggest bottleneck right now is actually that we aren't procuring enough of these mature platforms that we are capable of manufacturing at scale. So yeah, I mean, at the limit, I think we need to reform like trade school education, right? We need to become culturally obsessed with manufacturing again. We need to spend a ton of time vertically integrating the manufacture of rare earths, right? Like there are a lot of structural things, but I think right now more of the work needs to be done in procurement, and then in the actual just development of excellent platforms.
As for platforms Mach is working on, there are two. Their Huntington, California factory is currently manufacturing the company's two primary products, a weapon named Glide and a super light jet-powered unmanned aerial vehicle known as Viper. Viper is recognized for its ability to take off vertically, eliminating the need for a runway, and Mach claims it costs up to 300 times less to produce compared to conventional UAVs.
Where do you see Mach Industries going in the next 5 years, and where do you see the American, drone manufacturing industry going in the next 5 years?
So for us specifically as a company, it's bringing these two platforms to market. So they're both flying, right, pushing through TRL levels and bringing those into production, getting them into the hands of operators here in the U.S. and abroad, and then doubling down. And we have a few next generation product bets we're getting ready to make. And my goal is that by that kind of 27, 28 date, that we have 5 to 7 incredibly capable hardware products that we vertically integrated that we can turn on the machines, scale production, and make tens of thousands of.
They are lofty goals to be sure, but if Thornton and his team can crack the code and deliver on his vision, the idea of Hollywood wanting to tell their story suddenly wouldn't be so far-fetched. And it's not like the story doesn't have legs or outside interest. Since we spoke with Ethan initially, Mach Industries signed a contract with the U.S. Army to build a new cruise missile, and in a separate deal, Mach signed a contract to build UAVs for Heaven Drones, another company we've talked about here on Weapons and Warfare.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
Regular viewers of the show will know we here at Weapons and Warfare are big fans of the helmet system used by F-35 pilots. With a price tag of $400,000 and some incredible capabilities, we even featured it in our special on the Lightning II assembly facility. So when the good folks at Elbit America told us they'd have a similar product for helicopter pilots on display at this year's AFA Warfare Symposium, we knew we had to take a look and share it with you in our Weapon of the Week. First things first, the X-Sight looks cool, but really it's what's on the inside that makes this piece of tech so appealing to most anyone that's ever flown a helicopter.
The X-Sight is a binocular visor projected helmet, and so before when I flew a monocle-based HMD or helmet-mounted display, and it was a single monochrome, very small HMD, and it's matured over the last 15-20 years to where it's now instead of monochrome, it's high resolution, full color, as well as the field of regard or field of view is now over 60 degrees. And what that does is it allows you to see a lot more information, a lot more symbology, but you could still see through the visor and look outside the aircraft to those things that are important, especially for a rotary wing or helicopter pilot.
Eric Burke, callsign Delta, is Elbit America's Senior Director of Marketing and Business Development. He's also a former Marine helicopter pilot, which gives him some unique insight into what the X-Sight brings to the table.
A helicopter pilot typically is going to fly anywhere between 100 and 300 feet above the ground, so it is very dangerous inherently, where a fixed-wing pilot could be flying anywhere between 3,000 and 20,000 feet, so they don't have to worry about power lines, mountainous terrain, like helicopter pilots have to. Power lines in particular are very dangerous for helicopter pilots, so flying into those things is obviously very hazardous, where a typical fixed-wing pilot doesn't have to deal with those dangerous situations.
And the X-Sight allows the pilot to be able to recognize those threats a little bit sooner, a little bit quicker, and then, plan accordingly on their flight path?
It does. The X-Sight has both real and augmented reality, and it knows where power lines, power poles, other obstacles, whether it's man-made or even what we call a priori or existing data. So knowing where that is and having that depicted as symbology on the helmet really allows the helicopter pilot to fly and avoid those obstacles.
The X-Sight also utilizes active sensors such as LiDAR, TF, TA radar, and obstacle warning systems to give the pilot a 3D representation of what's in front of them. All this information is displayed on the advanced X-Sight screen, specifically designed to meet the needs of today's pilots.
As a helicopter pilot, you constantly have to look down at the instrument panel, whether it's on a paper map or a digital moving map. You're always checking your gauges, making sure your temperatures and pressures and RPMs are all what we call in the green or operating normally, where now I could look outside the aircraft and all of those things are being displayed in 3D symbology. And if it's literally in the green, if the numbers are green, everything's good. If it's yellow, you're getting close to that danger area. And if it's red, obviously, it's going to get your attention very quickly, and you're going to be able to address that situation, whether it's reducing power, increasing your altitude, things of that nature.
Of course, the big question is always, how much does it cost? While Burke did not provide a number, he did say that it costs less than the price tag on the F-35 helmet. And with the X-Sight not belonging to a specific aircraft, he hopes increased production numbers will make it an even more affordable option for operators.
It's fast and for hire, he's the calling wind. A soldier of fortune, he's a man called Paladin.
For viewers of a certain age, this scene from Stand By Me might have been your first exposure to the theme song from the late 50s hit, Have Gun, Will Travel. It was a weekly series about a cowboy/investigator named Paladin. Of course, the name itself traces back to a group of knights from the 8th century. Fast forward 1,300 years or so, and the name now belongs to a collateral effects interceptor drone developed by the Air Force Research Lab. In fact, we featured Paladin in a Weapon of the Week segment a little more than a year ago, But as we found out during our recent trip to Colorado, the Paladin packed on some upgrades, and that's why it's the subject of this week's Comms Check. Even when perched on display in the middle of a busy convention center, the Paladin is an intimidating piece of technology. But it's in the air where this interceptor, designed to keep the airspace over military runways and installations free of uninvited drones, really flexes his muscle.
So it's advertised as fully autonomous. I'll walk you through the kill chain really quick. So it'll get sensor data from an external sensor source, whether that's radar or whether it's RF sensing, and then it will be queued with with altitude, lat, and long, and then it can be dispersed by a member in the Base Defense Operations Center to say, go get it. It'll go out, track the target, then it switches to its onboard radar and onboard camera systems, and then it can tail the target until told to execute.
Since we first introduced our audience to the Paladin, it's undergone some changes. The most obvious being the switch from a Benelli to a Genesis Arms Gen 12 shotgun. The AFRL also worked with Zone 5 Technologies to give the Paladin the ability to carry loudspeakers or a rifle. But the biggest change for the Paladin? Probably its availability.
This has moved to field testing, and it actually is being purchased operationally by operational commanders at this time.
Awesome. Are you allowed to talk about where that's happening?
So it just got recently put on the Blue UAS list, so commanders can go on GSA and purchase them with their cards. So.
For the people that work at AFRL, like Captain Troy Kyle, that step in the process isn't just a box on a checklist that needs to be ticked.
It feels really, really good. Air Force Research Lab is very, very good at moving fast and getting technology to the warfighter again and again and again. Technology maneuver is very, very fierce here, where we're able to connect different types of technologies, whether it's software, hardware, have them work agnostically, have them work together, interoperable, and it's been great. It's a great feeling.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week on Weapons and Warfare. As always, please like and subscribe to our social media platforms and let your friends know about this great new show you found that keeps you informed about all things, well, weapons and warfare. So for my wrap this week, I'm going to address some of the fallout that we're starting to see as the United States charts a new path forward in terms of international diplomacy. When the United States cut off aid and intelligence sharing to Ukraine, an ally, every other U.S. ally around the world saw that and is now reacting to it in one way or another. Portugal and Canada, for instance, are rethinking whether or not they should continue with their plans to buy F-35 fighters from the United States. Not because they believe Elon Musk and think manned fighters are pointless in modern warfare, which, by the way, is something Israel disproved over Iran. No, Canada and Portugal, they may not spend billions of dollars to buy the world's most advanced fighter because their confidence in America's commitment to its allies was shaken. Now, the deals are not entirely dead just yet. Canada is scheduled to receive the first batch of 16 F-35s next year, but the original deal was for 88, and Canada's Prime Minister said they're looking to see if it's in the country's best interest to continue with the deal. Portugal's outgoing defense minister said the country should look for F-35 alternatives because, quote, the predictability of our allies is a factor to be reckoned with. I understand the current administration's desire to focus on protecting American interests. I get it. But snubbing allies and potential allies could drive them away, possibly toward our enemies. India was thinking of buying F-35s. Will they now go with Beijing? In terms of defense, the U.S. homeland is safer when more nations buy American. It makes our economy stronger, strengthens diplomatic ties, and it makes our own defense cheaper, which should be appealing to a White House that is hyper-focused on government efficiency. The point is, I understand there is an upside to being unpredictable when negotiating deals. Keep your ops guessing, that's a solid strategy. But Portugal and Canada, they're not America's ops. They're allies, friends. And make no mistake, America will need friends in a future conflict with a near-peer adversary. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics artist Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.